Welcome to Science Minds. I'm very, very pleased today to be joined by Leonard Abbeduto, the director of the Mind Institute. So thanks a lot for coming and sitting with me.
I'm delighted. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Excellent. Yeah, we've been wanting to get you on here for a while, so finally got my ideas settled as best I can, and I'm ready to pepper away. So,
sure.
You've had some really kind of distinct phases of your career, and I'm just interested to kind of get more of a background of, where you started out, some of the things that maybe drew you to the field at first, and kind of get a little bit of a background for you.
Yeah. So I was a graduate student in psychology at University of Illinois in Chicago, and I was studying language development in kids and had no real interest at that time in disabilities. But I was at a point where I also needed to get funded, and so a professor of mine had a grant that was ending, and he said, "I'll fund you to do some research, but it's under a condition." And so his grant was focused on how adults with intellectual disabilities created and maintained friendships in different community settings, right? And to see how those settings impacted their ability to have social relationships. And he said, I'll fund you to do something on language and communication, but what you have to do is, I want you to get to know these people first and know their lives. And so he said, you need to just hang out and really understand them. And I did that, and it was really incredibly eye-opening because at that time, most of the living settings were, even though they weren't institutions, they were institutional-like. And even in those that were more community-focused, the kind of the way that people lived was they would go to a sheltered workshop and do really not meaningful work, and then they would come home and watch television. And that was kind of all that they did, and so it just really kind of made me interested in how we can improve their lives. Plus, I got to really be friends with a lot of people, and so it was really just, it was kind of just a pivot in my career. And from that point on, kind of understanding and hopefully making the lives of people with disabilities better has really been the focus.
Yeah. Do you have any memories or experiences from that time that you sort of carry with you today, or that inform still what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it was it was partly the kind of the lack of activities and real inclusion in kind of the life of the community. That was one thing. But the other thing was that the folks that were in these different settings really had pretty rich social lives and had kind of the same sorts of dreams and desires of everybody else. So people wanted romantic partnerships. They wanted to have friends. They wanted to have some independence, and the system didn't really always allow that. And so I think it was kind of the fact that we all have these differences. We're all part of humankind, and it was just really kind of eye-opening to that extent. And then also it was just really the lack of support that people had. When I went to sheltered workshops, people were just really putting screws into bags and things like that, and it was really not very meaningful, and certainly from a financial perspective, they weren't making a living. So I think all of those things really kind of shaped my commitment, I think.
Yeah. What do you see, kind of looking back across your career to the beginning, what do you see as some important points of inflection in the field of intellectual and developmental disabilities that you can kind of look to and see the kind of arcs changing and shifting?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think in many respects, a lot of these ideas have kind of culminated in the neurodiversity perspective, which is more recent. But I think the biggest shifts that I've seen in the field have been recognizing that we need to stop locating disability within the individual and think about how the individual's strengths and challenges, along with the environment that they're in, really determines their level of their engagement in the world, their careers, whether they have friends or not, and that it's really about, so it was kind of this shift to let's look at the supports needed to make people live their best lives. And I think that that's continued in more dramatic ways with the neurodiversity perspective. So I think that certainly for me, in terms of how I think about disability, has been really important. And then the other thing is just more kind of in terms of my own career is having the opportunity to be involved in mentoring and training. So when I was at the University of Wisconsin, we started a NIH-funded T32 program to train postdocs, and it was one of the most exciting, rewarding things that I did. Some of these postdocs, we started this like in, 1995. Some of these folks are like senior award-winning scientists who have made amazing impacts, and so that kind of helped cement my interest in mentoring the next generation. And then just kind of administration around research kind of happened a little at a time. So all of those things were really kind of personally important for me.
Yeah. How do you think that your own research has sort of followed and changed with the times? How do you sort of see that intertwining?
Yeah. So I think it's certainly shifted to trying to understand not kind of what people's deficits are, but to look at what are the factors that make people more successful, right? And so a lot of the research we're doing in our lab is focused right now on understanding kind of the development for adults that have Fragile X syndrome and what leads them as they leave high school or they leave a transition program, what leads them to be more independent, to have better employment, and either in terms of the skills that they have or the experiences they've had, the family supports that they've had, the nature of the programs they're in. And so I think that that's a much more productive sort of approach, because then we can say, these are the things that we can change in the system to help support people. So I think that's been certainly a change in the perspective. And I think the other thing that I've come to just recently is a recognition that focusing on people and identifying them because they have autism or they have an intellectual disability is really a disservice to understanding the whole person and their lives. And I think that now we're focused on things like how does gender, how does race, ethnicity, all of those things impact their lives, and those things may be more important determinants of their everyday experience than whether they have a diagnosis or things like that. So I think those have been the biggest changes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing, as a postdoc kind of off to the side, one thing that when I sort of think about your body of research, and I've been at the Mind Institute for 3 years, so I've seen some of your leadership, and something that really strikes me about you is you appear to me to be a very flexible person. There's some flexibility in your approach. You don't, to me at least, tend to seem to back down from the changes in the field. You seem very adaptable in that, and I think that I would aspire to that kind of adaptability across my career. But it really makes me think, and I've been thinking about this since I started my podcast, especially in anticipation of interviewing the director of the Mind Institute. It was bound to happen one day or another. But thinking about leadership, and like academic leadership specifically, I can't think of a lot of like doctoral students who come into a PhD program and they're saying like, I aspire one day to be department chair, or I aspire one day to be the dean of faculty. And I'm wondering, where does that leadership come from? Where does that aspect of who you are as an academic? I think you're a very effective leader, but where does that come from for you?
Well, thanks for the very kind words. I really appreciate that. It certainly was nothing I was trained in, or when I started out, that was not in my, perspective on what I was going to do. In fact, it was probably, I'll do anything other than that,
yeah.
Right? And so I think it was kind of a gradual transition where I had the opportunity to support people, my colleagues, in different ways in terms of supporting their research. So I directed a core service when I was at the University of Wisconsin, which really helped people that were doing clinical research to recruit people into their research and to do kind of evaluations and things like that. And I kind of came to this view that, I want to have an impact, and I have an impact through my research, hopefully, but I can have an impact by helping other people, right? And there's something really rewarding about that. And so I've kind of stuck with that, and that's kind of motivated me. I've had other leadership opportunities that were less appealing, partly because I felt that they were too constrained and they were not focused on research. And for me, kind of research and impact are really critical. At one point, I was a finalist for a dean position, and no offense to any of my dean friends, but when they started to ask me what I thought about summer school and how the classes should be organized, I thought, that's not my thing, right? And so I'm about research and impact, and I think the other thing that I've learned in terms of leadership, and if I am a good leader at moments, it's because I think I respect and value people. And I think that, just wanting to help people, to support people, and enjoying interacting with people, I think that's in many respects, that's half the battle in terms of being a good leader. And you have to sometimes, be okay, stepping back and let other people shine. But that's really rewarding too. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It definitely does. Well, I see like the parallels between what you kind of said earlier about your approach to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities at the beginning of your career, and looking for ways to support them and to bring them up. And and then you mentioned sort of your work at Wisconsin-Madison with the training programs and helping these postdocs and doctoral students on their way up, and that just the idea of lifting the people around you up, that resonates, and it's very evident.
Well, you said it much better than I did. So
I don't know. I was just trying to distill my perception of just what I've seen, but I think that the flexibility aspect and that idea of the teamwork, right? Like if looking across your publications, even the number of collaborations and collaborative relationships that you've developed and sustained, it's really broad and quite impressive. And it's very encouraging and inspiring.
Well, again, thank you. The thing that's interesting about it, though, is, I think that I came to a point where I was forced to collaborate, in the sense of we started to study problems that were beyond my capabilities. But that was hard. It's hard not to be like in total control and the expert, right? And so, it took me a while to come to that. But I have to say, the collaboration I think the science is better. I think it's more fun and more interesting. And, it's just, science is also, at least the way that we do science, it's a social activity, right? And so I've had the good fortune, particularly as I've gotten more senior in the field, that that there are lots of people that I could collaborate with that are experts. But I can choose those who I'm compatible with, who I enjoy as people, and it makes things just, it makes life fun.
Yeah.
So I think enjoying what we do is because we work hard, right? And so, but you have to, if all you do is work hard and you don't enjoy it, and then it's you're not going to last at that, right? So
yeah. Do you ever think about sort of the things that you may have to sacrifice to be a leader in an academic field?
I never felt that I've sacrificed anything, because I think that I've been able to maintain my research, and in fact, since I've been at the Mind Institute, we are much more productive as a lab. I have had great colleagues. Angie Thurman, who is my longtime collaborator, she is responsible for so much of what happens in the lab, and it's been fun to watch her grow as a scientist, because she started out as a postdoc. And the other thing is, I do think that the opportunities that I've had in leadership have actually always really made my research better. I think that I've gotten to see what other people do, understand their programs of research, understand things that I never would have tried because I have the opportunity to interact with all these people that I probably wouldn't have because I'd be kind of locked into my own lab. And so I always feel that everything that I've done has had benefits, not just for me as a leader, but for my program of research as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. As you sort of think about this next transition in your career, you know, leaving as director and being recalled, what are you excited about?
So I'm excited about two things. One is the new research that we're doing. We've got a couple of grants that literally are just starting, and my colleague Angie Thurman and I are doing both of these together. One is focused on understanding language and cognitive contributions to academic outcomes in girls who are either autistic or have Fragile X syndrome. And I'm really excited about that because I think it's important to understand how these things we study impact real life outcomes, right? And I get to the other colleague who's collaborating is at the University of Wisconsin, who is now an associate professor who was a postdoc of mine.
Okay.
And she's one of my favorite people in the world. So I get to do this with her, and it's great research. The other project that we have is focused on extending some of our language measures that we've tried to develop for treatment studies to look at change. And it's an opportunity to do this with Spanish-speaking populations who are really cut out of a lot of treatment research because we don't have culturally appropriate or linguistically appropriate measures. And so that's a new project, so I'm really excited about that. And then the other thing outside of my own research that I'm really excited about is the Mind Institute is just an amazing place. And you know, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish since I've been there, but it's going to like continue to grow beyond me. And so I think it's some of the things that my colleagues are doing and thinking about are just really exciting. And so my hope is that in a couple of years they're going to go, Len who? Right? Because they're going to be moving on to bigger and better things. And so I'm really excited about the future. And particularly I'm really excited about, I think, a clearer emphasis on partnerships with autistic individuals and other neurodivergent individuals. And I'm really excited about, I think, a really more intense commitment to equity, both in terms of how we kind of live our lives daily, but also in terms of research, that we are going to change systems so that there's more equitable access to all sorts of care and educational opportunities. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to watch it rather than have to, figure out how to contribute to it in a direct way.
For sure. Yeah, what would you say you're most proud of during your tenure as the Mind Institute director?
Well, I mean, I think some of the programs that we've helped to start have been really important for the future of the Mind Institute. I think, our LEND program, which is our training program for clinicians, I think that's been a nice addition. I think our Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Research Center has been really important because it brings in resources to support our research mission and connect us to other centers in the country, and I think that's been really useful to bring us together. But really what I'm most proud of is some of the people that I've helped a little bit along the way. Some of the faculty who started that I helped. I mean, I was not, the only person that helped to recruit here. Faculty that transition from postdocs into faculty positions that are just doing amazing things and really are already leaders. For me, that's the most exciting thing because, I mean, ultimately what makes the Mind Institute special really are the people, right? And so I've gotten to help and watch people develop as leaders. And I thought about whether I would name people, and I'm not because there are too many and I'll forget somebody. But it's an amazing group of people, and just to have played even a tiny role in helping them do their research and develop professionally, I feel just so proud of that, and it was worth anything to make that happen. So
that's amazing. Well, the PIs that I've come in contact with and the people, the staff at the Mind Institute think so highly of you.
Well, thank you.
And having this conversation with you is very clear why. So
thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for speaking with me and hanging out. And we want to thank Old Soul Coffee for hosting us and allowing us in their space. We got to nice new
Yeah.
Science Minds interview space. So hopefully it'll keep going. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, Andy.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with the promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.